Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. In last episode, we talked about the fourth plenum of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and it's coming in this October, and we discussed some of their agendas, the public announced ones and the hidden ones. And we'll also talk about the political situation that Xi Jinping is facing now. Some viewers came to us and said, you guys are being too conservative, because some people are now talking about the possibility of Xi Jinping stepping down in the fourth plenum. And you guys are so conservative, and you dare not to say that. Believe me, we have good reasons to be so conservative.
Surfshark VPN 上网自由，隐私有保障。现在上网可不是滑滑网页而已，你的 IP 浏览记录有可能正在被追踪。Surfshark VPN 帮你隐藏你的 IP， 加密连线，保护你的个资，让你更安心上网。不止如此，它还可以突破地区的限制，启用 Kill Switch 保护机制，防止你的资料外泄，还有 Android 专属的变更 GPS 的功能。现在呢，你只要到 surfshark.com/free8888， 或者是输入我们的折扣码 free8888， 立即享有额外多4个月 Surfshark 的使用期，每月比一杯咖啡还要便宜，而且一个账号同时还可以在多个装置上面来做使用，跟家人朋友一起更划算。Surfshark VPN 让你安全又自由的上网。
I remember about 6 or 7 months ago, in one of our episodes, we talked about the logic or the rules of operation of Chinese politics, the politics of Communist China. We noted that the first thing is that they worship struggles. Mao Zedong once said, it is a great pleasure to struggle against heaven, to struggle against the earth, and to struggle against other people. Of course, his idea came from Marx, Lenin, and Stalin. But somehow, gradually, they developed that into a what I call pathological obsession with political power. They pay paramount attention to political power, more than anything else, more than economic gains and losses, social relations, reputation, or even human dignity, and so on and so forth. That's the case with the Communist Party, and that's also the case with the communists themselves. Once they are caught in political struggles, the methods they use are usually ruthless and cruel. It's a case with their enemies, and it's a case with their comrades. So when it comes to political struggles, that they do whatever it takes to win. There are no rules, no boundaries, and no limits. Here, let me give you a few examples. The first one is Cultural Revolution. I remember there are some scholars, especially American scholars, they argue that the Cultural Revolution begins because that Mao Zedong hates bureaucratism. He thinks that many Chinese bureaucrats, either on the party side or on the government side, are being so bureaucratic, and he hates it. So he wants to start this Cultural Revolution to cleanse these cadres on the government side and also on the party side. That's not true. A cultural revolution, although it's in the name of culture, but it's in fact a sheer power struggle. The story goes back to the years 1958 through 61, when Mao Zedong was launching a campaign called the Great Leap Forward, and also the so-called People's Commune. That unfortunately ended in a great famine, an unprecedented famine in human history. It is estimated that 35 million to 45 million people were starved to death during that 3-year period. Then by 1962, the Chinese Communist Party held a conference. They called it a 7,000 people conference. And in the meeting, in the conference, Mao Zedong was forced to relinquish part of his power, at least his post as the head of the government of the republic, so-called the People's Republic, to Liu Shaoqi, the number 2 guy in the party. And after Liu Shaoqi took over the power from Mao Zedong, he reversed all his policies during those 3-year period. And Mao Zedong was so unwilling to accept the defeat. So he tried to reclaim his power. That's what I call pathological obsession with political power. But at the time, it was almost impossible for Mao Zedong to adopt what we call a legal, a legitimate method to regain his power inside the party. So he thought of something else. He launched a campaign known as the Red Guard movement. And the number one target, of course, is Liu Shaoqi himself. And let me remind you, at that time, Liu Shaoqi was head of the government. He was the president of the People's Republic of China and the vice chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, namely the number 2 guy in that society. And the legal way to do this should be, they hold a meeting inside the party, and then they would have a policy debate between Liu Shaoqi and his followers and Mao Zedong and his followers. And then eventually they should resort the result to a vote. But Mao Zedong did not do that. Instead, he decided to use an illegal method to regain his power. And that's what we call the Red Guard movement. And like I said, Liu Shaoqi was still the head of the government, so he was heavily protected. It was almost impossible for Mao to have access to him. So he used the Red Guards as an instrument. And the Red Guards used a plot to arrest Wang Guangmei, Liu Shaoqi's wife, and then used Wang Guangmei as a lure to fish out Liu Shaoqi. And Liu Shaoqi was stripped of his security guards and so on and so forth. Namely, Liu Shaoqi was arrested illegally. He was detained illegally. There was no meeting, no conference, no trial, and Liu Shaoqi was tortured to death in prison. Come to think of it, the head of the state, the number 2 guy in the party, but then he dropped to number 8. But anyway, he was still nominally the vice chairman of the party, and he was purged like that. So that's what we said. When it comes to political struggles inside the party, there will be no limits, no boundaries. They'll do whatever it takes to achieve their end. The second case is the purge of Lin Biao, Mao's top general, actually Mao's top marshal. Lin Biao had been a staunch supporter of Mao Zedong. In fact, it was because of Lin Biao's support and the support from the military side that Mao could purge Liu Shaoqi so easily. After the purge of Liu Shaoqi, Lin Biao's political base and political power expanded greatly, which somehow ignited Mao's suspicion of Lin Biao, and Mao decided to purge Lin Biao instead. And according to the official story, Lin Biao detected Mao's intention, so he decided to fight back. And he plotted a coup d'etat. He tried to assassinate Mao Zedong, but somehow the plot failed because of the betrayal of Lin Biao's daughter. Lin Biao got on board of an airplane and tried to flee the country, but somehow the plane crashed in Mongolia. That's the official version of the story. But like any other political events in communist China, there are all kinds of rumors about Lin Biao's death. One version of the rumor is that he was actually poisoned to death by Mao Zedong himself, or he was killed by a rocket inside Beijing city, or he was arrested secretly by Mao Zedong and tortured to death, just like Liu Shaoqi. But no matter what, Lin Biao perished. Remember, Lin Biao was the number 2 guy after the purge of Liu Shaoqi. He was the number 2 guy in the party, in the government, and especially in the military, next only to Mao Zedong. So again, that testifies to our observation. There's no limits, no boundaries when it comes to political struggles inside the party. The third case is the purge of the notorious Gang of Four. Mao Zedong died on September the 9th, 1979. And by then, on the surface, there are 2 major factions or 2 major groups in Beijing's political arena. One is Hua Guofeng, the other one is the Gang of Four. Hua Guofeng was the head of the party, head of the CMC Central Military Commission, and interestingly, he was also the premier of the government. So he was a 3-in-1 political figure, nominally the top guy in Chinese politics. And his opponent, the Gang of Four, they have a stronghold in Shanghai, the Shanghai city. They even had their own militia in Shanghai, quite powerful one. And so there was what they called a second army for possible coup d'etat in the future. The Gang of Four included Jiang Qing, the wife of Mao Zedong. She was a member of the Politburo. The second person is Wang Hongwen. He was the member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo, and also the vice chairman of the party, next only to Mao Zedong himself. The third one is a gentleman by the name of Zhang Chunqiao. He was also a member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo, also one of the vice premier of the State Department. The fourth one is a gentleman by the name of Yao Wenyuan. He was also a member of the Politburo. The thing is, both Hua Guofeng and Gang of Four were promoted by Mao Zedong. And Mao was such a scheming person. He knew what might happen after his death, so he promoted two groups so that they could compete against each other, and eventually they'll uphold his banner and carry on his mission. And he was very good at that. And that's exactly what happened. The two groups were caught in a very intense political struggle, but somehow Hua Guofeng was very good. He joined hands with Marshal Ye Jianying, one of the 10 marshals, and they planned a coup d'etat against the Gang of Four. They sent out a notice to the Gang of Four asking them to come to a meeting for editing the 5th volume of Mao Zedong's work, selected work. So on October the 6th, the Gang of Four came to Beijing, and when they entered the meeting room, they were arrested right there. Again, there was no legal conference, no official occasion, and they were arrested just like that. But let me tell you this, there was indeed a trial. That's what they call a monkey trial of the Gang of Four, and publicly announced that the crime that they committed. And they're all sentenced to jail, some for a long period of time, and some served a life sentence in the jail. And eventually, Jiang Qing killed herself in the jail. So all these three cases tell us that how ruthless and how cruel political struggles can be inside the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so much for the examples of the political struggles inside the Chinese Communist Party. Let's go back to the current political situation in Beijing. As we pointed out, there are so many political rumors surrounding the topic because they are undemocratic and the political situation is so opaque. So that brings up so many rumors. And if we pay enough attention to these rumors, they all seem to point to one direction, that Xi Jinping is losing grip on his power. Either he is losing it or he has lost it already, and his health condition is deteriorating badly, and it was after the third plenum or only recently. But anyway, he's losing his power. We're not sure of that, but anyway, there are signs about the instabilities in Beijing's politics, that's for sure. As for the challengers, the rumors point to Zhang Youxia, the number 2 guy in the CMC, the Central Military Commission, and also to both Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao, the former head of the state and the former head of the party, and they're both from the CYL, the Communist Youth League, and so on and so forth. Question is, who is spreading these rumors? So far, we have identified 2 groups. The first group is those who hate Xi Jinping. They want to undermine Xi Jinping's political power. They want to divide up Xi Jinping's followers. And they want to stir other people to take some moves against Xi Jinping or things like that. These are those who hate Xi Jinping. And the second group is from Xi Jinping's group. That's interesting. For instance, Xi Jinping wants to smoke out potential challengers, 1 or 2 or maybe more. Using their jargons, they're saying to lure the snakes out of their holes, or just to test the degree of loyalty of his followers. And that's done by Xi Jinping. Ironically, the rumors can come from Xi Jinping's followers because they know that Xi Jinping is having some health problems and they're ready to seize political power, or at least to seize a high ground for future political struggle. So my observation remains pretty much the same. In terms of Beijing's politics now, it's like everyone distrusts everyone else. They are caught in a dog-eat-dog situation. That's why I said we cannot rule out any possibilities. Assassination, coup d'etat, mutiny, or illegal arrests, or even an explosive countermeasure taken by Xi Jinping himself. We'll never know what the end game is until the last minute. But anyway, the fourth plenum is something worth watching, something worth waiting for. As a China watcher, I sincerely hope that this kind of political struggles will come to an end, and the democratic political system established in China. Perhaps a review of a history of what happened in Eastern European countries, their history of democratization, could shed some light to China's future. And I think that's all I want to share with you today. Thank you for watching. And please share it with your friends if you haven't done so. And also please subscribe it if you haven't done so. And please do remember to click the icon bell so that you can get an on-time notification. I'll see you next time.